I want you to picture a crime scene. You're probably, imagining yellow tape, maybe some broken furniture, some kind of physical evidence that something awful happened.
Right.
But what if the crime scene looked perfect? What if someone was living in absolute terror every single day, but on the surface there are no bruises, no screaming, nothing's broken?
It's the ultimate invisible crime, isn't it? We're all conditioned by TV shows to look for the smoking gun, the obvious proof.
Yeah.
But the weapon system we're talking about today, it doesn't leave marks on the skin. Not at
Yeah.
first. It leaves them on the psyche. It just completely dismantles a person's freedom.
And that's our deep dive for today. Coercive control. And I know that term is absolutely everywhere right now. It's in the news, it's being debated in Parliament. But I have to admit, after reading the research you sent over, I realized I didn't really get it. I sort of thought it just meant a really possessive partner. But it is so much more systematic and so much darker than that.
It is. If you think of physical violence as, say, an explosion, coercive control is the wiring that connects the bomb. It's the whole framework. And for a long, long time, society and the law just completely missed it. We were too busy looking for the bang.
So, okay, we've got a lot to get through. We need to define what this actually is, look at some really harrowing case studies that show the tactics, and then talk about this huge legal shift that's happening across Australia right now.
A very necessary shift.
Especially in New South Wales and Queensland, it feels like the game is finally changing.
The law is playing catch-up, finally updating the legal code to match what we know about human psychology.
Okay, let's start there then, with the psychology. You referenced the scholar Evan Stark, who basically wrote the book on this back in 2007, and he calls it a liberty crime. That phrase just it really stuck with me.
Stark is absolutely pivotal here. He's the one who really shifted the conversation from assault, which is about physical safety, to liberty, which is about a person's autonomy.
Their right to be themselves.
Exactly. And he defines coercive control not as a fight or a single incident, but as a course of conduct.
A course of conduct, so it's a pattern.
It's a pattern, but it's more than that. It's a strategy. I mean, look, if I get stressed and I yell at you once, that's just bad behavior. It's not great, but it's not this.
Right.
Coercive control is a calculated, ongoing project to regulate and dominate someone's daily life. It's about systematically stripping away their sense of self.
Okay, so let me play devil's advocate for a second, because I can hear someone listening and thinking, well, my partner gets annoyed if I spend too much, or my partner just likes to know where I am. Where is the line?
That is the million-dollar question. And it's what makes this so incredibly difficult to spot and to prosecute. The line is fear and deprivation.
Fear.
Yes. Is a behavior limiting your freedom? Are you actively changing what you do, who you see, what you wear, to avoid a negative reaction or a punishment? It's a combination of psychological, financial, and emotional power that creates a trap.
And that trap is often invisible, even to the person who's stuck inside it. I know the old cliche is the frog in boiling water.
Yeah, forget the frog. The frog would jump out. The research points to something much more insidious called intermittent reinforcement.
Okay, what's that?
It's the slot machine effect. Think about it. If you pulled the lever on a poker machine and lost every single time, you just walk away.
Of course.
But the machine pays out just enough, a small win here and there, to keep you hooked, to keep you pulling that lever.
So the abuser isn't a monster all the time.
Exactly. They might be terrifying 1 minute, but the next, they're the most charming, loving, apologetic partner you could imagine. That good version is the payout. It floods the victim's brain with dopamine, with hope. They stay not because they're weak, but because they are psychologically addicted to the hope that the person they fell in love with will come back for good.
Wow. And then you add this other concept from the research, perspecticide, which, I mean, it sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It literally means the death of perspective. It's the end result of gaslighting. And gaslighting isn't just lying.
No.
It's a systematic project to dismantle someone's reality until they can't trust their own judgment. They start to adopt the abuser's worldview. I'm too sensitive. I'm lucky they put up with me. I probably did provoke them. Your own reference points are just gone.
So you have a person whose reality has been erased, who's hooked on this chemical cycle of occasional kindness. That's a recipe for total paralysis.
It is. And then once that paralysis sets in, the really specific tactics of control start to escalate.
Let's talk about those tactics. We've got 3 case studies here from the source material, Roxanne, Rose, and Sophie, and they really illustrate the mechanics of this. Roxanne's story first.
Roxanne's case is a masterclass in what we call omnipresence. Her partner used technology to create this constant feeling that he was everywhere.
Tracking devices, constant calls.
All of that. But the detail that really stands out for me is the sleep deprivation.
Yeah, that stopped me cold. He wouldn't let her sleep. I mean, if I miss a couple hours of sleep, I can barely function. This is deliberate.
It's a known torture tactic. It's used in warfare to break prisoners. If you deprive someone of sleep, you destroy their cognitive resistance. She was literally too exhausted to think clearly, too exhausted to plan a way out.
And even after she did leave, the technology meant she still felt like he was watching her.
This technology-facilitated abuse is a huge part of modern coercive control. It's not just checking texts anymore.
No.
It's GPS trackers. It's hacking into social media accounts, using smart home speakers to listen in. We've even seen cases where an abuser will plant a listening device in a child's backpack to track the mother.
Oh, that's just sickening. Using your own kids against you. It sends that message loud and clear. You can run, but you can never, ever hide.
It's total unregulated access.
Then we have Rose's story. And honestly, this one just made me angry. She was a victim of reproductive coercion.
Which is a form that is so often overlooked. Rose's partner was actively sabotaging her contraception. His goal was to make her pregnant against her will.
And the police at the time, they basically did nothing.
Well, you have to think about the legal landscape back then. She went to them, but there was no assault. Tampering with birth control. It just didn't fit into any of the legal boxes for domestic violence.
But the strategy was so clear.
Crystal clear. By forcing a pregnancy, he was forcing financial dependence. She couldn't work. She was tied to him and to the home. It was a strategic move to lock her into the relationship.
It's just a perfect example of how the system failed. They were looking for evidence of a fight, and he was playing this long, twisted game of chess with her life.
And that leads us straight to Sophie, who experienced economic abuse. Her husband, a man she was married to, was diverting her own salary into his bank account.
So she was earning money but had none.
Exactly. She had a job, a house. To the outside world, everything looked fine. But she had to borrow money from friends just to buy groceries for her kids.
It's one of the most effective shackles, isn't it?
Absolutely. You can't leave if you can't afford a train ticket. You can't find a new place to live if you can't pay a bond. It makes escape a practical impossibility.
So, okay, we have all these tactics that aren't physical. Sleep deprivation, financial control, reproductive sabotage. But the big question is, does this kind of abuse actually hurt people as much as physical violence? Because there's still that old idea of sticks and stones.
The science completely demolishes that idea. The peer-reviewed evidence is just unequivocal. Coercive control is directly linked to staggering rates of depression, anxiety, PTSD, and even suicide.
Really?
In fact, many studies show the long-term psychological damage can be more severe than in cases of only physical abuse.
More severe? How?
Because it's constant. A physical assault is an event, it happens, and then there's an aftermath. Coercive control is the atmosphere you breathe, 24/7. Your nervous system is in a constant state of high alert. It never gets to reset. It's chronic, toxic stress.
And that affects the kids in the house, too.
Just as deeply. It can cause developmental delays, emotional issues, all sorts of harm.
We should also mention the sources are clear that this looks different depending on who you are. For LGBTQ plus people or First Nations communities, the abuser finds different weapons.
Right. An abuser might threaten to out their partner to an unaccepting family. Or if the victim is an immigrant on a visa, they'll threaten to have them deported. They use the world's existing inequalities as extra points of leverage.
Okay, so this brings us to the solution, or at least the attempt at a solution. The laws in Australia are shifting under our feet as we speak.
It is a huge legislative wave. For decades, the law was incident-based. It could only ask who hit who on Tuesday at 9 p.m. It just wasn't built to understand a pattern of behavior.
So how do you even prosecute a pattern? I mean, how do you prove a threatening look or a specific tone of voice in a court of law?
And this is the challenge. That's the friction point. But the states are trying to figure it out. New South Wales and Queensland are really leading the charge, but in very different ways.
Okay, let's break that down. New South Wales brought in their law in July 2024.
They did. That's the Crimes Legislation Amendment, Coercive Control Act. The maximum penalty there is 7 years in prison.
7 years is a serious sentence, but then you look over at Queensland.
And Queensland went much harder. Their law, which kicks in from May 2025, sets the maximum penalty at 14 years.
Double. Why such a big difference?
I think it reflects a difference in urgency and perhaps a recognition of the severity of the DV crisis in that state. Queensland is sending a very clear signal that this is not a lesser form of abuse. They're putting it on par with grievous bodily harm.
Because it's so often the prelude to it.
It's the #1 predictor of intimate partner homicide. In nearly every single domestic homicide case, when you look back, you find a clear history of coercive control. These laws are trying to intervene before it gets to that point.
What about the other states and territories?
The Northern Territory has had the Domestic and Family Violence Act since 2017, which is more focused on early intervention orders.
Yeah.
The idea is to get a legal order in place to stop the behavior before it escalates to a criminal level.
And places like Victoria and WA?
They're all in various stages of reform. They have prohibitions under broader family violence laws, but they're moving towards these standalone offenses. The whole country is waking up to this.
But the problem I see, and the sources mention this, is implementation. You can pass a law, but how does a police officer arriving at a house recognize it? If everyone's calm, but the wife isn't allowed to have her own bank card, is that an arrestable offense on a Friday night?
That is the single biggest hurdle. It requires a monumental cultural shift in policing. Police are trained to photograph bruises. Now they have to be trained to interview for psychological patterns. They need to be asking who controls the car, who controls the passports.
It sounds incredibly difficult to prove beyond a reasonable doubt in court.
It is. And there are valid concerns that it could be weaponized in custody battles, for instance. But the alternative, doing nothing, was clearly failing victims. The law had to try and evolve.
So if the law is changing, maybe our thinking has to change too. For anyone listening who's worried about a friend or a sister, what are the red flags, the really subtle ones?
Look for the micromanagement. Not just big fights, but is their partner controlling what they eat, what they wear, who they text, and look for their world getting smaller.
The isolation.
Exactly. Is your friend canceling plans more often, dropping out of hobbies they used to love? And look for that feeling of walking on eggshells. Does their entire personality change when their partner's name pops up on their phone? That constant hypervigilance is a massive tell.
Okay, so say I see that. My friend's world is shrinking. My first instinct, and I think a lot of people's instinct, would be to swoop in, to drive over, pack their bags, and say, that's it, you are leaving him right now.
And that would be a disaster.
Why? I'm trying to help.
Because you're accidentally replicating the abuser's dynamic. The abuser's message is, I control your life. If you show up and say, I'm now going to control your escape, you're just another person taking away their agency.
But it feels like doing nothing.
It's not doing nothing. It's doing something much harder. It's empowerment. You listen, you believe them, and you ask them, what do you need from me right now to feel just a little bit safer?
You let them drive.
You let them drive. Maybe all they need today is for you to hold on to a spare set of keys for them, or a copy of their passport. You build the bridge, but you have to let them decide when and how they're going to cross it.
And when they are ready, there are professionals they can call.
Yes. 1-800-RESPECT is the national hotline. There's the Men's Referral Service, Kids Helpline, the Full Stop Rainbow Helpline for LGBTQ+ people. These services are trained for this because leaving is the most dangerous time.
Right. When the abuser feels that control slipping, that's when the risk of violence skyrockets.
That is the flashpoint.
This has been, well, it's been heavy, but so necessary. We've gone from the invisible definition to the mechanics of the abuse and finally to the sense of legal hope on the horizon.
It's a huge period of transition. We are fundamentally redefining what domestic abuse is and what safety means.
I want to leave everyone with a thought. We've talked about how the law is finally starting to recognize that a pattern of control can be as harmful as a punch. But here's the challenge for us. If the courts are now prepared to intervene when they see control disguised as concern, are we, as friends, as family, as a society, are we ready to stop calling it a toxic relationship and start calling it what it is, a crime against liberty?
That's the next step. That's the cultural shift.
Thank you for helping us unpack this invisible chain today.
Thank you for having me.
And to our listeners, please check the show notes for links to those resources we mentioned. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.